Forget the image of a conical mountain. A single supervolcano is not a peak to be climbed, but a scar on the face of the Earth. It is a feature known as a caldera, a vast sunken crater formed when the ground collapses after emptying a colossal magma chamber beneath. These are not mere geological curiosities. The caldera at Lake Toba in Sumatra is so vast you could fit the entire urban sprawl of Tokyo, London, and New York inside it, with room to spare. That scar is the lid on a pressure cooker holding enough molten rock to bury a continent in a thick blanket of ash, 1 meter deep. To earn the title of supervolcano, an eruption must register an 8 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI. The VEI scale is logarithmic. Each whole number represents a 10-fold increase in the volume of ejected material. A VEI 8 is not just one step up from the VEI 7 eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815. It is an order of magnitude more catastrophic. Tambora was the largest eruption in recorded history, powerful enough to plunge the northern hemisphere into the year without a summer, causing crop failures and famine from New England to Switzerland. A VEI 8 is to Tambora what Tambora is to a backyard fire pit. A single super-eruption unleashes energy equivalent to 1,000 modern nuclear bombs, detonating every second for hours on end. Now imagine not 1 but 5 of these geological titans erupting in the same hour. Yellowstone in Wyoming, a restless giant slumbering beneath a national park. Toba in Sumatra, the site of an eruption 74,000 years ago that nearly wiped out humanity. Campi Fleurie, the burning field simmering under the western suburbs of Naples. Taupo in New Zealand's North Island, the source of Earth's most recent super-eruption 26,500 years ago. And Long Valley in California, a close neighbor to Yellowstone on a geological timescale. All aligned, all triggered simultaneously, not by a single identifiable cause, but by the statistical nightmare that planetary geologists call a caldera cluster event. It is a scenario so improbable it has never occurred in human history, but the geological record shows it can happen, and in this scenario, it does. Here is what happens next. The first sign is not a tremor, it is a deformation of the planet's crust. In Yellowstone, the ground bulges, rising 15 meters in just 12 minutes. Highways split apart like broken china. Rivers are violently rerouted mid-flow. The initial sound is not a bang, but a pressure wave of infrasound. A bass frequency so low below 5 Hz that the human ear cannot detect it, but the body feels it. Your ribcage resonates sympathetically. Your alveoli, the delicate air sacs in your lungs, vibrate apart. For anyone within a 100-kilometer radius of each caldera, death is instantaneous. They simply collapse, their lungs shredded before the first column of ash even breaks the sky. At the 5 source vents, the eruption columns, a churning mixture of ash, pulverized rock and superheated gases, punch through the troposphere and breach the stratosphere in under 30 minutes, soaring to altitudes of over 50 kilometers. At this height, the powerful jet streams take hold, shearing the tops of the columns and smearing them across the globe. Within hours, the ash clouds from the 5 separate volcanoes merge. Weather satellites, before they fail, transmit their final horrifying images, a single planet-spanning black continent of ash, stretching from the Pacific to the Atlantic. There is no sunrise, no noon, no dusk, only a deepening perpetual charcoal twilight. The world's airports become monuments to a bygone era, closing permanently. Any aircraft in the sky at the moment of eruption faces a terminal fate. Their jet engines ingest the fine ash, which melts at high temperatures and fuses to the turbine blades as molten glass. The engines starve, choke, and fail. Every plane still airborne loses power within 90 minutes, their final glide paths ending in silence. On the ground, the power grid dies a death of 1,000 cuts. The ash, when mixed with atmospheric moisture, becomes a heavy, conductive cement. Power lines, caked in this sludge, sag and snap. Transmission towers designed for wind and ice buckle under a load they were never engineered to withstand, snapping like toothpicks. The radio goes silent. The internet, our global nervous system, dies in a cascading failure of overloaded substations and melted transformers. Communication reverts to the range of a human voice. The ash falling from the sky is not soft like soot. It is pulverized rock and glass. Under a microscope, each particle is a shard of obsidian with edges sharper than surgical steel. To breathe it is to inhale millions of microscopic razors. It shreds the delicate tissues of the respiratory tract. You do not suffocate from a simple blockage. You drown in your own blood standing upright. But the ash is only the first killer. The second is invisible. Each eruption injects hundreds of millions of tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. The total from all five is 2.5 billion tons. High above the weather, this SO2 gas reacts with water vapor to form a dense, persistent veil of sulfuric acid aerosols. This veil acts as a planetary mirror, reflecting incoming sunlight back into space. A single supervolcano can drop global average temperatures by 2 degrees Celsius for several years. 5 together trigger a plunge of 15 to 20 degrees. This is not an ice age, which takes centuries to develop. This is a planetary deep freeze arriving in a matter of weeks. Summer does not arrive. It is erased from the calendar. The global growing season is reduced to zero. Every major breadbasket on the planet, the wheat fields of North America, the rice paddies of Asia, the corn belts of the Americas, fails completely. The sulfuric acid in the stratosphere falls back to Earth. Acid rain, with a pH of 2.0, the same as stomach acid, falls on every continent. It burns the leaves off any surviving plants, acidifies the topsoil, and turns freshwater lakes and rivers into sterile chemical baths. The sheer violence of the eruptions triggers massive earthquakes along tectonic plate boundaries, creating mega tsunamis that scour and redraw every coastline on the planet. But the greater, more insidious threat comes from the oceans themselves. 70% of the world's oxygen is not produced by rainforests, but by photosynthetic phytoplankton in the upper layers of the ocean. They are the base of the entire marine food web, and they need sunlight to live. The sulfur veil now blocks 95% of that sunlight. The great plankton bloom, the very lung of the planet, dies off catastrophically. The consequences are atmospheric. At sea level, humans require an oxygen concentration of at least 19.5% to function normally. As the planet's primary oxygen producers die, that number begins to fall. At 15%, cognitive function is impaired, judgment falters. At 10%, a strange hypoxic euphoria sets in, followed by unconsciousness. At 6% oxygen, no mammal can survive for longer than 8 minutes. The air itself becomes poison. The 5 supervolcanoes have initiated a runaway feedback loop. The ash and aerosols reflect sunlight. The planet cools. This rapid cooling causes the Earth's crust to contract, creating immense stresses that open new fissures and faults. This in turn releases more magma, feeding the eruptions and venting more aerosols into the stratosphere, which accelerates the cooling. This is no longer a singular event. It is a self-sustaining planetary hemorrhage that could last for decades. The sky remains dark for 10 to 20 years. The profound cold persists for 2 centuries. Some life will endure. A few thousand humans perhaps, sealed in deep underground bunkers with closed-loop life support, geothermal power, hydroponics, and filtered air. They will survive the initial cataclysm, but they will emerge, generations later, to a world they cannot recognize. A world without topsoil, without bees, without birdsong. A world where the sun, if it can be seen at all, is just a pale, hazy coin behind a perpetual shroud of volcanic winter clouds. The Earth itself will restabilize. The volcanic winter will end. In 1,000 years, maybe 10,000, the ash will weather into incredibly fertile new soil. New ecosystems will rise, but they will not be the ones we knew. Not with oaks or pines, but with the hardy pioneers that reclaim sterilized ground, like the ferns and liverworts that rose after the Permian Triassic extinction. the great dying. Life will find a way, but it will not be our life. For every human alive today, for our entire civilization, there is no future in this scenario. There is only the slow, dawning realization, over weeks of encroaching darkness, deepening cold and gnawing hunger, that the solid ground beneath our feet was never a permanent home. It was merely the cap on a geological trigger, waiting to be pulled. The geologists knew, the volcanologists warned us. The warning signs are always there, for those who know how to read them. Subtle ground uplift measured in millimeters, shifts in the composition of volcanic gas emissions, the appearance of harmonic tremors deep within the earth. But no civilization in history has ever acted on warnings measured in geological time. Our species thinks in election cycles and fiscal quarters. The earth thinks in epochs. So listen. Listen to the ground beneath you. It is not silent. It is humming, right now, with the immense, patient energy of a planet. A hum at frequencies too low for your ears to hear, but not too low for your bones to feel.
I'll be back.